In this video, I'm going to show you 50 advanced words you can use for writing task 2. Not only that, but for each one, you'll learn the meaning, useful synonyms, common collocations, and we'll look at some example sentences. Let's get started with word number 1, which is mitigate. Now, mitigate is a verb, and it means to make something less harmful, serious, or severe. Here are some synonyms: reduce, lessen, alleviate, and ease. Collocations: mitigate the effects of. So this means to make the effects less harmful or less serious. Mitigate the impact of. Mitigate risks. Many governments implement policies to mitigate the effects of climate change. So that means governments are using policies to try to make the effects of climate change less harmful or less serious. Strict safety regulations help mitigate the risks associated with construction work. Just make sure that when you use mitigate, you use it for bad things. We normally don't use mitigate for something positive. Let's look at word number 2 now, which is allocate. Allocate is a verb, and it means to give something officially to someone or for a particular purpose. So synonyms are give, assign, and share. Collocations: allocate resources, allocate time, allocate money. So for all of these collocations, it means we are giving those things. We are giving resources for a particular purpose. We are giving time for a particular purpose. And that's the key thing with allocate. It means you're giving something for a particular purpose, for a specific reason. The government decided to allocate more money to public education. So that means the government is giving more money for the reason of improving public education. Companies must allocate time for employee training. Same thing, they are choosing to give time for a specific purpose. Now, many students forget that allocate is usually followed by things like money, time, or resources, so make sure you use it like that in your essays. Let's move on to word number 3, which is detrimental. Detrimental is a great word. It's an adjective, and it means causing harm or damage. Synonyms are harmful, bad, or damaging. So here are some collocations: detrimental effect. So this means a bad effect which has caused harm or caused something negative to happen. Detrimental impact, detrimental to. Smoking has a detrimental effect on public health. So this means smoking has an effect on public health, and this effect is that it causes harm, it causes damage. Too much screen time can be detrimental to children's development. Detrimental is a great alternative to bad, but it's only for negative effects or results. Don't use it to describe people or feelings. So for example, you wouldn't say something like John is detrimental. All right, let's move on to number 4, which is implement. Implement is a verb, and it means to start using a plan, a rule, or an idea. Here are some synonyms: start, use, or carry out. Collocations: implement a policy. So this means to start using a policy, to put that policy into effect. Implement a strategy, same thing. Implement a solution, same thing, to start using a solution. The government plans to implement new environmental rules. So this means the government is planning to start using these new environmental rules. Example number 2, many schools have implemented strategies to improve student performance. So that means these schools have started using strategies to improve student performance. Now, make sure you only use implement with things like policies, rules, or strategies. You can't say things like implement work or implement a task. Let's move on to word 5, which is emphasize. Emphasize is a verb, and it means to give special importance or attention to something. Synonyms: highlight, stress, or point out. Collocations: emphasize the importance of, emphasize the need for. Emphasize a point. So if you emphasize a point, you're giving special attention to that point or to that thing. Teachers often emphasize the importance of critical thinking. So this could mean something like teachers often tell their students how important critical thinking is. They give special importance to that thing. The report emphasizes the need for immediate action on climate change. So this means the report is giving special attention to the fact that climate change needs immediate action. So if you want to show the examiner that a point is really important in your argument, emphasize is a great word to use, but don't use it too often, otherwise it might lose its effect. Moving on to word 6, which is abundant. Abundant is an adjective, and it means existing in large amounts or more than enough. Synonyms: plentiful, a lot of, and a large amount of. Collocations: abundant resources. So this means a lot of resources, more than enough. Abundant opportunities, same thing. Abundant evidence, same thing. A lot of evidence, more than enough. So here's an example. Renewable energy provides abundant opportunities for job creation. There is abundant evidence that regular exercise improves mental health. So this is saying that there's more than enough evidence to show that regular exercise is or can improve your mental health. Now, just remember that we normally use abundant for positive or neutral things like opportunities, resources, evidence, or even money. So for example, you could say something like abundant opportunities, but you wouldn't say something like abundant traffic or abundant pollution, because these things are generally thought of as negative. Let's move on to 7 now, which is justify. Justify is a verb, and it means to give a good reason or explanation for something. Some synonyms are explain, give a reason for, or defend. Collocations: justify a decision. So this means you explain your reasons for your decision. Justify an action, same thing. Justify the cost. Here are some examples. Governments must justify any increase in public transportation fees. So this means that if governments increase the fee for public transport, they have to explain that. They have to give good reasons for that. It is difficult to justify spending large amounts of money on space exploration. So this means it's difficult to give some good reasons why we should spend all this money on space exploration. So justify is used when you give reasons for actions, decisions, or opinions. So you can say justify a decision or justify an action, but you wouldn't use it with things like colors or feelings. It wouldn't make sense to say justify a color. Moving on to number 8, which is compulsory. Compulsory is an adjective, and it means something that must be done because of a rule or law. So it must be done. Synonyms: required, necessary, and mandatory. Collocations: compulsory education. So this means education that you must do because of a certain rule or law. Compulsory attendance. Same thing, it means you must go to something. Compulsory military service. This is often used in countries where they make their young people do military service. It's compulsory. You can't choose, you have to do it. In many countries, education is compulsory until the age of 16. Some governments have introduced compulsory military service for young adults. So again, we're saying that this military service for young adults is something that must be done. And it must be done because there's a rule or a law to say so. Just be careful because some students mix up compulsory and necessary. Now, compulsory means something that is required by a rule or a law. You have no choice. But necessary just means it's needed, but it might not always be required. Let's move on to the next one, which is contribute. Contribute is a verb, and it means to give something. For example, time, money, or effort to help achieve something. For example, a result. Synonyms: give, add to, help. Collocations: contribute to society. So this means you're helping to improve society. Contribute to the economy. Same thing. You're giving something and it's achieving a result for the economy. Contribute to a solution. Now let's look at some examples. Education can contribute to economic growth by creating a skilled workforce. By volunteering their time and skills, individuals can contribute to a variety of community improvement projects. So this means that if people volunteer, they are giving their time, and this is helping to improve or make a difference to these community improvement projects. Now, be careful because contribute normally needs to after it. For example, we would say contribute to society, not just contribute society. Moving on to number 10 now, which is sustainable. Sustainable is an adjective, and it means able to continue for a long time without causing harm. Synonyms: long-lasting, environmentally friendly, maintainable. Collocations: sustainable development, sustainable energy, sustainable practices. So when it comes to sustainable practices, this is talking about things that you can keep doing for a long time without causing harm, and it's normally referring to the environment. Many governments are investing in sustainable energy sources like wind and solar power. So if these energy sources are sustainable, you can keep using them for a long time and there's no damage. So think about wind. You can keep using wind for a long time and there's not going to be any damage to the planet or to the environment. Promoting sustainable development is essential to protect the environment for future generations. So sustainable is a great word for when you want to talk about long-term solutions, especially for the environment or the economy. Moving on to number 11, which is influence. Influence can be a noun and it can also be a verb. Now, it means the power to affect how someone thinks or what happens. Here are some synonyms: affect, impact, or shape. Collocations: influence on behavior. So this means the power to affect how someone behaves. Influence public opinion. So this means the power to affect how the public thinks about a specific issue. And influence decision making. Examples: parents have a strong influence on their children's values and behavior. Well, this is very obvious because parents are the ones that teach their children, so they have the power to affect how their children think. Social media can influence public opinion during elections. When you're using influence, make sure to use influence with on when you're using influence as a noun. For example, influence on young people, but you don't need to use on when you're using influence as a verb. So for example, social media can influence behavior. So for that sentence, we don't need on because influence is a verb. Moving on to number 12, which is affordable. Affordable is an adjective and it means cheap enough for most people to buy or pay for. And synonyms are cheap, reasonably priced, and low cost. Collocations: affordable housing. So this means most people can afford that housing. Affordable healthcare, same thing. Most people can buy it. Most people have enough money. Affordable prices. Many governments are working to provide affordable housing for low-income families. Affordable healthcare is a major concern in many countries. So this is saying that having access to healthcare that most people have the money to pay for is a major concern in a lot of countries. So affordable is a great synonym for cheap, which can sound a little bit too informal in academic writing. Moving on to 13, which is generate. Generate is a verb, and it means to produce or to create something. Synonyms: produce, create, or cause. Collocations, generate income. So this means to produce income, to make money. Generate electricity, so to create electricity. Generate interest, same thing. Here's an example. Renewable energy sources like wind and solar can generate electricity without harming the environment. Government investment in infrastructure projects can generate employment opportunities. So this means it can create employment, it can create jobs for people. Please note that generate often describes creating results or outcomes, not physical objects. So for example, we wouldn't say to generate a chair because a chair is a physical object. Moving on to 14, which is enhance. Enhance is a verb and it means to improve something or to make it better. Synonyms: improve, increase, or boost. Collocations: enhance performance, so improve performance, enhance quality, to make the quality better, and enhance skills. New teaching methods can enhance students' learning outcomes. Investing in renewable energy can enhance a country's long-term economic growth. So this just means that if governments invest in this type of energy, well, it can improve a country's economic growth. So enhance is a great word to use instead of, using very simple words like improve or make better. Moving on to 15, which is access. Access can be a noun, and it can also be a verb, meaning the ability to use or reach something. Synonyms: entry, opportunity to use or reach. Collocations: access to education. So this means that people can use the education in that place. Access to healthcare, same thing. So the ability to use that healthcare. Access to technology. Here are some examples. Many rural communities lack access to quality healthcare services. So this means that many rural communities do not have the ability to use quality healthcare services. Improving access to higher education can help reduce social inequality. So this means giving more people the ability to use higher education can help to reduce social inequality. Remember, when you're using access as a noun, we normally say access to something with to, like access to information, access to the internet. Moving on to 16, which is participate. Now, participate is a verb and it means to take part in an activity or an event. Some synonyms are take part, join, or engage. Collocations: participate in activities. So this simply means you do some activities, you take part in some activities. Participate in discussions, same thing. Participate in programs. Students are encouraged to participate in extracurricular activities to develop social skills. So this means it is suggested to students that they take part in these activities to help improve their social skills. Many citizens chose to participate or take part in the government's recycling program. Just something to remember, we normally say participate in something. So for example, participate in discussions. We wouldn't say participate discussions. You need to have that in. Moving on to 17, which is priority. Now, a priority is a noun, and it's something that is more important than other things and should be dealt with first or should be handled first. Synonyms: main focus, top concern, main importance. Collocations: top priority. So this means something is the most important thing. Set priorities. So this means to decide what is important. Give priority to. This means to make something more important than other things. So here are some examples. Improving public health care should be a top priority for governments. This means that improving healthcare should be the most important thing for governments. Many companies give priority to hiring candidates with strong communication skills. So this simply means that when companies are thinking about who to hire, one of the things that is the most important for them is strong communication skills. So priority is a great word you can use in your essays to show what should come first or what is most important when you're solving a problem or making a decision. Moving on to number 18, which is restrict. Restrict is a verb. It means to limit or to control something. Synonyms: limit, control, reduce. Collocations: restrict access, restrict movement, restrict freedom. So for all of these things, it's talking about controlling or limiting something. So restricting freedom, limiting freedom, controlling freedom. Let's look at some examples. Many governments restrict access to certain websites for security reasons. So this means that many governments control or limit the access to certain websites because they might be dangerous or cause problems. Some cities restrict the use of private cars in busy areas to reduce traffic congestion. This means that the number of private cars will be limited or controlled. Why? To reduce traffic congestion. So restrict is a very useful verb when you're writing about rules, laws, or actions that might limit things, particularly in problem solution essays. Let's move on to 19, which is maintain. Maintain is a verb, and it means to keep something at the same level or in good condition. Synonyms: keep, continue, preserve. Collocations: maintain standards. So this means to keep the standards at the same level or at a good level. Maintain health. So again, this means to keep health at the same level. Maintain relationships. So to keep our relationships in good condition. Governments must maintain high standards in public healthcare services. It can be challenging to maintain a healthy work-life balance in today's busy society. So this means it might not be easy to keep your work-life balance at the same level, because sometimes you might have to work too much. And then if you work too much, well, there's no work-life balance anymore. Now, some students confuse maintain with improve. Maintain means keeping something as it is at the same level, but improve means making something better. Moving on to 20, which is adequate. Adequate is an adjective, and it means enough or good enough for a particular purpose. Synonyms: enough, sufficient, or acceptable. Collocations: adequate resources, so enough resources. Adequate support, enough support. Adequate standard, good enough. So many people argue that government funding for public education is not adequate. So this is saying that governments are not providing enough money for public education. The funding is not enough. Workers must receive adequate training to perform their jobs safely. So this is saying that workers need to have enough training to perform their jobs safely. So adequate means something meets the basic requirements. You know, it's enough, but it's probably not fantastic. It's just enough. Now, it's a great word to use instead of just saying enough. Moving on to 21, which is minimize. Minimize is a verb, and it means to reduce something as much as possible. That's the key there, to reduce something as much as possible. Synonyms: reduce, lower, decrease. Collocations: minimize risks. So this means to make the risks as small as possible. Minimize costs, same thing. It means to make the costs as small as possible or as low as possible. Minimize damage. Here are some examples. Governments should take action to minimize the environmental damage caused by industrial activities. So because of these industrial activities, there may have been some environmental damage, So government should take action. They should do something to make that damage as small as possible. Proper planning can help minimize the risks associated with large construction projects. So the word minimize works best when you're talking about things that people usually want to keep as low as possible, like costs or negative things like pollution. Moving on to 22, which is diverse. Diverse is an adjective and it means showing a lot of variety or differences, a lot of different things or people or anything really. Synonyms: varied, different, mixed. Collocations: diverse population. So this means a population with a lot of different people from different backgrounds and different countries. Diverse opinions. Same thing, a lot of different opinions. Diverse backgrounds. Cities often have a diverse population with people from many cultural backgrounds. And the second example, a diverse range of opinions can lead to more balanced and creative solutions. So this means different opinions can lead to better outcomes or better solutions. If you often use words like different, try using diverse instead to make your writing sound more formal and more academic. Moving on to 23, which is promote. Promote is a verb and it means to support or encourage something so that it develops or becomes successful. Synonyms: support, encourage, help. Collocations: promote education. So this means to encourage education. Promote health, same thing. Promote awareness. This means to encourage people to know about something, to teach people about something. Governments often promote healthy lifestyles through public awareness campaigns. So this means that governments often encourage people to lead healthy lifestyles. How? Well, through education or public awareness campaigns. Many organizations promote the importance of environmental conservation. So this means that many organizations support this idea of environmental conservation. Now, remember, promote is not just for advertising products. It can also be used to talk about ideas or behaviors. Moving on to 24, which is efficient. Efficient is an adjective and it means working well without wasting time, money, or energy. Synonyms: effective, well organized, productive. Collocations: an efficient system. So this means the system works well without wasting anything. Efficient method, same thing. Energy efficient. So this means something works well without wasting energy. Moving on to the examples, public transport systems need to be efficient to reduce traffic and pollution. Using energy efficient appliances can help lower electricity bills and protect the environment. So this means using appliances like microwaves or fridges that work well without wasting energy or electricity. Just something to note, don't confuse efficient with fast. Something can be quick, but still waste a lot of energy or money. Efficient means it works well and avoids waste. Moving on to 25, which is expand. Expand is a verb and it means to make something larger or increase its size. Synonyms: grow, increase, extend. Collocations: expand knowledge. So that means to make your knowledge bigger or wider or more. Expand a business. Same thing, to make a business larger or bigger. Expand opportunities. Governments should invest in programs that expand educational opportunities for young people. So this means governments should do things that increase the amount of educational opportunities for young people. Many companies are looking to expand their operations into international markets. So this means many companies are wanting to increase their size and go into international markets. So if you often use words like increase or grow, try using expand sometimes to avoid repeating the same verbs. Let's move on now to 26, which is regulate. Regulate is a verb, and it means to control something, usually by making rules or laws. Synonyms: control, manage, oversee. Collocations: regulate prices. So this means to control prices with rules or laws. Regulate industries. Same thing, to control industries with laws or rules. Regulate behavior. Let's look at some examples. Governments often regulate industries to protect consumers and the environment. Some countries have introduced laws to regulate the use of personal data online. So this means some countries are using laws to control the use of personal data online. So regulate is very useful when writing about government actions or laws that control industries or behavior or technology. Moving on to 27, which is aware. Aware is an adjective which means knowing about something or having knowledge of it. Synonyms: conscious of, informed about, or familiar with. Collocations: aware of risks. So that means you know about the risks. Aware of issues. Same thing, you know about the issues. Aware of consequences. Same thing. Citizens need to be aware of the environmental impact of their daily choices. So this means people need to know what effect their actions are having on the environment. Many people are not fully aware of the health risks linked to poor nutrition. So this means many people don't really know the health risks linked to not having a good diet. Now, when you're using aware, remember to use aware of when explaining what someone knows. For example, aware of the risks, not aware the risks. You need to have that of, aware of something. Moving on to 28, which is establish. Establish is a verb, and it means to start or create something that is meant to last, that is meant to be around for a long time. Synonyms: set up, create, found. Collocations: establish rules, so to create rules that are going to be around for a long time. Establish an organization, same thing, maybe to create a company that's going to be around for a long time. Establish a relationship. Examples: the government has established or created new guidelines to improve workplace safety. Many charities have been established to support education in developing countries. So this means that these charities have been created and they're probably going to be around for a long time. Now, don't confuse establish with start. Establish is much more formal and is normally better for things that are meant to last for a long time. Moving on to 29, which is factor. Factor is a noun, and it is something that influences or causes a result. Synonyms: reason, cause, element. Collocations: key factor. So this means something important that influences or causes a result. Major factor, same thing, so a big factor. Contributing factor. Cost is often a major factor when students choose which university to attend. So this means that the amount of money you have to pay to go to university is often something that will influence students when they're deciding which university to attend or go to. One key factor in reducing pollution is improving public transportation. If you often find yourself using words like reason or cause, try using factor instead to sound a little bit more academic. Moving on to 30 now, acknowledge. Acknowledge is a verb, and it means to accept or to recognize something as true or important. Synonyms: accept, recognize, admit. Collocations: acknowledge the importance of. So this means you recognize, you can see the importance of something. Acknowledge a problem. Same thing, you can see that there is a problem. Acknowledge responsibility. This means you accept responsibility. Governments must acknowledge the importance of addressing climate change. So this means that governments must accept that climate change is a big problem and they need to do something about it. Many companies now acknowledge the need for better work-life balance. So this is saying that many companies now know or accept that better work-life balance is something very important. Now, just be careful with this one. Don't confuse acknowledge with agree. You can acknowledge something without fully agreeing with it. Moving on to 31, which is compensate. Compensate is a verb and it means to give something to make a situation better, normally money. Synonyms: make up for, balance out, repay. Collocations: compensate for the loss. So that means to give something, again, normally money, to make the loss better. Having a loss is obviously a bad thing, but if you receive some money, well, it might make that situation a bit better. Compensate workers. So to give something to workers. Compensate by. Governments often compensate farmers who suffer crop losses due to natural disasters. So this means governments often give something to farmers to help make that bad situation a bit better. And what is that bad situation? Well, it's because they have suffered crop losses or damage to their farm. Long working hours should be compensated with adequate pay and vacation time. So the word compensate is really useful when you're talking about fixing problems or paying someone for a loss. Most of the time, it's used when talking about work, money, or social issues. Moving on to the next one, which is 32, embrace. Embrace is a verb and it means to accept or support something willingly. Now, synonyms are accept, adopt, and welcome. Collocations: embrace change. So this means that you are accepting change, you are welcoming that change. Embrace opportunities. Same thing, you're accepting these opportunities, you're supporting them. Embrace technology. Many companies have embraced remote working as a long-term solution. So this means that many companies have accepted remote working or working from home as a long-term solution. Young people are often quick to embrace new technologies and ideas. Embrace is a great word to use when you want to say that people accept or support something new or different. It's really useful for essays about change and sometimes even when you're talking about modern society. Moving on now to 33, which is facilitate. Facilitate is a verb and it means to make something easier or help it happen. Synonyms: help, support, make easier. Collocations: facilitate learning. So this means to make learning much easier or to help learning happen. Facilitate communication, facilitate development. Now let's look at some examples. Technology can facilitate communication between people in different countries. So this means that technology can help make communication happen if people are in different countries. Good teaching methods can facilitate student learning and understanding. Facilitate is a formal word, so it's a great choice for IELTS essays. It really shows the examiner that you can use high-level verbs instead of simple ones like help. Moving on to 34, which is undermine. Undermine is a verb and it means to weaken something or to make something less effective. Synonyms: weaken, harm, damage. Collocations: undermine confidence. So this means to weaken confidence or to reduce someone's confidence. Undermine authority, same thing. Undermine efforts. So this means to make someone's actions less effective. Examples: spreading false information can undermine public trust in the media. So that means if the media tells lies or spreads false information, that might weaken the trust that the public has in the media. Corruption can undermine efforts to improve public services. Same thing, so it can weaken efforts or weaken actions to help improve public services. So undermine is much more advanced than just saying weaken or reduce, so it can really help to improve your vocabulary score. Use it when you're talking about actions that make a situation worse or reduce effectiveness. Moving on to 35, which is deteriorate. Deteriorate is a verb and it means to become worse over time. Synonyms: decline, worsen, weaken. Collocations: deteriorate rapidly. So this means to become worse very quickly. Deteriorate over time. So this means to become worse as time goes along. And deteriorate in quality. So this means that the quality becomes worse. Examples: without proper maintenance, public infrastructure can deteriorate rapidly. So this means if we don't look after public infrastructure like roads, for example, well, they can become worse and damaged very, very quickly. If the economy continues to deteriorate or become worse, unemployment rates may rise. So deteriorate is a formal verb that's great for describing things that slowly get worse, like the economy, health, or the environment. Moving on to 36, proponent. Proponent is a noun and it means a person who supports or argues in favor of something. Synonyms: supporter, advocate, defender. Collocations: proponent of renewable energy. So this means someone who supports renewable energy. Strong proponent. This means someone who really, really, really supports something. Leading proponent. Examples: many proponents of renewable energy argue that it is key to combating climate change. So this means that many people who support renewable energy argue that ... She is a strong proponent of free public education for all citizens. So this means she's a strong supporter of free public education. So instead of always saying I support or I am a supporter of or I believe this, I believe that, you can use I am a proponent of to sound more formal and academic. It's a really professional word and it works really well in IELTS essays when you're giving your opinion about something. Moving on to 37, which is critic. Critic is a noun and it's the opposite of a proponent. Critic means a person who disagrees with or disapproves something or doesn't support something. Synonyms: opponent, disapprover, skeptic. Collocations: critic of the policy. So this means someone who disagrees with a policy. Strong critic, so someone who really strongly disagrees with something. Harsh critic, that has a similar meaning to strong critic. Many critics of the new law argue that it limits personal freedom. So this is saying that many people who disagree with the new law argue that ... She has long been a critic of the government's environmental policies. So instead of always saying people who disagree say that ... well, you can write something like critics argue that ... It's a more precise and professional way to say the same thing. Moving on to 38, disrupt. Disrupt is a verb which means to interrupt or stop the normal progress of something or the normal movement of something. Synonyms: interrupt, disturb, interfere with. Collocations: disrupt services. So this means to interrupt or to stop the normal working of the services. Disrupt the economy. So this means to stop the normal functioning or progress of the economy. Disrupt education. Natural disasters can disrupt essential public services such as electricity and water supply. The rise of online shopping has disrupted traditional retail businesses. So because now we have online shopping, well, this has changed or interrupted the normal progress of traditional shops because most people are choosing to shop online now instead of actually going to a shop. So disrupt is really useful when you want to describe how something stops or changes the normal way that things work. It's really good for essays about technology, education, or even the economy. Moving on to 39, diminish. Diminish is a verb and it means to make something smaller or less important. Synonyms: reduce, decrease, lessen. Collocations: diminish importance, diminish value, diminish the impact. So all of these collocations are saying to make something smaller or less important. Some people worry that using too much technology may diminish face-to-face communication skills. So this means to lessen or reduce people's ability to have conversations face-to-face. Efforts to improve the economy can help diminish the effects of poverty. So this means that if you try to improve the economy, well, it could make the effects of poverty much smaller. If you find yourself using reduce too often, diminish can help and add a bit of variety to your writing. It works really well when you're talking about effects or how important something is. Moving on to 40, incentivize. Incentivize is a verb and it means to encourage someone to do something by offering rewards or benefits, most of the time money. Synonyms: motivate, encourage, promote. Collocations: incentivize behavior. So this means to encourage someone to act in a certain way by offering something in return. Incentivize businesses. Same thing. So this means to encourage businesses to do something. How? Well, by offering rewards or benefits. And finally, incentivize investment. Governments can incentivize companies to reduce carbon emissions by offering tax breaks. So this is saying that governments can encourage companies to reduce their carbon emissions. How? Well, by offering tax breaks. So that means that the companies will have to pay less tax. Many schools use reward systems to incentivize good behavior among students. So next time you want to say encourage, ask yourself, are they offering a reward? If they are, well, you might be able to use incentivize, and this is going to make your writing sound more advanced, professional, and accurate. Moving on to 41, compelling. Compelling is an adjective and it means very convincing or hard to resist. Synonyms: convincing, persuasive, powerful. Collocations: compelling argument. So this means an argument that is very convincing or a very good argument. Compelling reason. Same thing, a very powerful reason. Compelling evidence. Examples: there are many compelling reasons to invest in renewable energy. So this means there are many good, strong, powerful, convincing, persuasive reasons to invest in renewable energy. The author presented a compelling argument in favor of free education. So the next time you want to describe an argument or a reason that's really strong and really persuasive, compelling is the perfect word to use. Moving on to 42, reinforce. This is a verb and it means to make something stronger. Synonyms: strengthen, support, back up. Reinforce an idea is the first collocation. This can mean to make the idea much stronger. Reinforce a message. Same thing, to make the message much stronger. Reinforce beliefs. The new policy reinforces the importance of equal opportunities in the workplace. So this means that the new policy is making the idea or the importance of equal opportunities much stronger. And the next example, teachers often use real-world examples to reinforce learning in the classroom. So that means teachers use real or things from the real world to help strengthen the students' understanding of something. Now, just something to note, the word reinforce can be used for both physical things and ideas. But for most of the time in writing task 2, you'll normally use it to talk about ideas, arguments, or beliefs, and not objects. Moving on to 43, viable. Viable is an adjective and it means able to work successfully or be done. So it simply means something that might work, something that can work. Synonyms: workable, practical, realistic. Collocations, viable solution. So this means a solution that is able to work. It can work. Viable option, viable alternative. Investing in renewable energy is considered a viable solution to reduce carbon emissions. So this is a great word to use when you're talking about solutions in your writing task 2 essay. A viable solution means a solution that is able to work. It can work. Online learning has become a viable alternative to traditional classroom education. So instead of always saying good or possible, try using the word viable. But just remember, viable just means something that can work. It doesn't mean it's the best possible option or that it will work. Moving on to 44, which is hinder. Hinder is a verb and it means to make it difficult for something to happen or progress or to move forward. Synonyms: block, prevent, slow down. Collocations: hinder progress, hinder development, hinder success. So for all of these things, it simply means that it makes it difficult for these things to happen. It makes it difficult for progress to happen, makes it difficult for success to happen. Lack of investment in public transport can hinder the ability of low-income families to access better job opportunities. So that means if there's not enough money going into public transport, well, this is going to make it difficult for low-income families to get access to those better job opportunities. Strict regulations may hinder or may block or prevent small businesses from expanding into new markets. So the word hinder is really useful when you want to explain how something makes progress slower or more difficult. Now, it doesn't mean to stop something completely. It just means to create challenges when trying to move forward. Moving on to the next one, which is compromise, word 45. Compromise is a verb and it means to lower the quality of standards of something by making a deal or accepting less. Here are some synonyms: weaken, reduce, and damage. Damage can be a synonym for some contexts. Collocations: compromise quality. So if you compromise quality, that means you might lower the quality of something. Compromise safety, same thing, to lower the quality of safety. Compromise standards. Examples: cutting costs should not compromise the quality of healthcare services. So that means, okay, yes, we might have to reduce costs, but that doesn't mean we should also, or that should result in a lower quality of healthcare. Some argue that fast economic growth can compromise environmental sustainability. So again, we're using the word compromise to say this might lower the quality of environmental sustainability. Now, many students think that compromise only means finding a middle ground, but in IELTS essays, especially for writing task 2, it's often used for or to describe lowering standards or creating weaknesses to get a result. Let's move on to 46 now, which is accelerate. Accelerate is a verb and it means to make something happen faster. Synonyms include speed up, hasten, and quicken. Collocations: accelerate growth. So this means to make growth happen faster. Accelerate progress. Same thing, to make progress happen faster. And the last one here, accelerate change. Same thing, okay, you're making change happen faster. Technological innovations have accelerated the pace of economic growth. So that means because new inventions in regards to technology are happening, well, this is increasing the speed of economic growth. Policies that support renewable energy can accelerate the transition or the change to cleaner power sources. So this is saying that these policies might be able to make the change happen much faster. A lot of students only think of cars or vehicles when they think of the word accelerate, but in IELTS essays, you can use it to talk about making something happen faster. Moving on to 47, retain. Retain is a verb and it means to keep or continue to have something. Synonyms: keep, maintain, preserve. Collocations: retain information, so to keep information. Retain employees, continue to have employees. Retain control. Companies must work hard to retain or keep skilled employees in a competitive job market. Students who take regular breaks are more likely to retain information effectively. So that means if they have regular breaks, it's more likely they'll be able to continue to have that information or keep that information. So retain is a very useful verb when you want to talk about keeping something over time, whether it's skills, employees, or even something like control. Moving on to 48, fluctuate. Fluctuate is a verb and it means to change frequently, especially by going up and down. Synonyms: vary, change, shift. Collocations: fluctuate prices. So this means prices are going up and down, they're changing frequently. Fluctuate levels, same thing. Fluctuate demand, same thing. So it means the demand is going up and down, it's changing frequently. Prices for basic goods often fluctuate or often change frequently due to changes in supply and demand. Energy consumption tends to fluctuate throughout the year depending on the weather. So that means the electricity or the power that people use changes frequently, and of course that will mean that it goes up and down. So fluctuate is a great word to use when you want to describe something that keeps changing, especially when it goes up and down. You'll often need to use this one if you're talking about prices or trends. Moving on to 49, optimize. Optimize is a verb and it means to make something as effective or successful as possible. Synonyms: improve, maximize, enhance. Collocations: optimize performance. So this means to make the performance as good as possible. Optimize resources, optimize efficiency. Companies must optimize their use of resources to stay competitive. So this means if companies have money or time, they must use those things as effectively as possible to stay competitive and to stay in business. Students should optimize their study time or use their study time as effectively as possible to prepare for exams. Now, some students confuse optimize with improve, but optimize means making the best use of something, making it the best that you can, but improve, on the other hand, means making something better, but maybe you don't make it the best that it can possibly be. Moving on to word number 50, curtail. Curtail is a verb and it means to reduce or limit something. Synonyms: limit, reduce, restrict. Collocations: curtail spending, curtail freedom, curtail activities. So in all of these collocations, it's talking about reducing something, reducing spending, reducing freedom, limiting freedom. Governments may need to curtail public spending during economic downturns. So this means governments might need to reduce public spending during economic downturns. Some believe that strict regulations can curtail personal freedom or can reduce personal freedom. So curtail is a great way to say something has been reduced or limited without repeating or using words like cut or reduce. So they were 50 words you can use in Writing Task 2. If you want to know exactly how to write the perfect essay for Writing Task 2, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching, take care, and see you in the next video.